Thomas Martin.
Nayyer,
Welcome.
thanks for having me.
Good. You were one of the first people when establishing this, thought of wanting to have here in this room. Um, I already mentioned to you, and you said, I don't think financial accounting is so interesting. But that may be how we know you. But as we've learned growing up, that our professors and teachers are more than the classes they teach. And I'm sure that applies to you as well.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, I teach accounting. As you guys know, I've had you all for 2 courses and maybe a third course, but yeah, accounting is probably not what I would say I'm most passionate about. In
No,
fact, yeah, it's further down the list for sure. But
right. So then
yeah.
to start from the beginning in a sense then, who is Thomas Martin outside of financial accounting?
I would say if I bring up my Instagram handle, I think it says uh, Dad, triathlon enthusiast, and then Professor third.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say the biggest thing with me now is being a dad, having a second kid recently. So my daughter Georgia, and I have a almost 3-year-old son Luca. So they definitely consume, everything I do every day.
Right.
And then, with that, obviously, my wife is a big part of my life. So just being a dad, being, part of the family that me and my wife are growing. So that's huge right now for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, with that, me and my wife, Cassie, we both do a lot of, we'll say, cardio. So
Right.
cardio as in running, biking, swimming,
Right.
exercise, and we both do a lot of triathlons.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we met / how we kind of, got to know each other, started dating, and then obviously got married and had kids. We had that in common.
So how early did you start with the cardio dimension of your life?
Yeah, God, that's a good question. I would say it began right back in like early high school. I played basketball growing up. I'm not tall or I would say super athletic. I definitely shouldn't have been playing basketball, but that's where the part of Canada I grew up. Basketball is surprisingly one of the more popular sports. A lot of people, when they find out I'm from Canada, kind of ask like, "Oh, did you play hockey?"
Yeah.
And I did when I was a kid up until like 10 or 11, but basketball was the sport that I played every day right up until I was about 18, 19 years old. Like me and my friends, our group, that's all we did. And honestly, that was like the primary thing I did. Secondary was studying.
Yeah.
I never, even in university, I felt like sports and athletics was the number one thing. And my studies, I always fit in outside of that part of my life, and
So
kind of made it work.
did you kind of like want to grow up and do something within competitive sports, or did you always see it as something that you did on the side as a passion, but still pursued academia? Because what part of Canada are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, on the northeast of Canada. It's a pretty big island. Like if you compare it to anywhere in the U.S., I can't say exactly what state it's the same size as, but you can drive from south to north, and it'll take probably 12 hours, I think.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big island, but yeah, sports. I always grew up like wanting to just play sports. Always enjoyed it. Once I realized that basketball wasn't for me, again because I'm 5'8" and 150 pounds, wasn't gonna happen outside of high school. There's the AC again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of fell into running a bit more. So I started doing some races, like little fun runs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fared out pretty well. Then when I started university, I tried out for the cross country team just to see where I landed. Like among basketball players where I grew up, I was always like the fastest, fastest / best cardio, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
when it came to running. And I never really got to do many like races against kids my age. So
Right.
yeah, I tried out for cross country. Got my ass kicked pretty good. I was last or close to last in a lot of those big meets and races. But I think that was part of the reason why I started to get addicted to it and stuck with it, because it was so difficult.
So how was your mindset then? So starting out, you've kind of like let go of this idea of becoming,
Playing basketball. Yeah.
to now running and not succeeding at it to start with. Yeah. So you've gone from something that you've been good at and that you've been passionate about to something that essentially you did not succeed in. So where was your mindset at that time?
It was a new challenge. Like basketball, I felt I kind of squeezed that lemon as much as I could, and there wasn't anything left for me with basketball. I kind of knew that I was at my peak in terms of like how good I could get at the sport.
Yeah.
And once high school ended, the structure had disappeared. I played with some like rec league teams, but there was no practices. There was no like set tournaments, games that we had in high school. Like during high school, that's all we did was play basketball. Like honestly, it was practice every day, games every weekend.
Yeah.
I think in my last 2 years of high school, we had 40 to 50 games a season, which is a lot for school sports. And it was extremely structured, though. It was like no break. And then when I got to university, that disappeared, but running has structure. So like the coach at the time would give us handwritten on a piece of paper, like a 1 week, 2 week schedule saying Monday you do 30 minutes at 7 a.m., 30-minute easy run. And then at 5:30 you do an hour. And then Tuesday at 5:30 we do, sprints or a hill workout or something like that. And then Wednesday, and everything was mapped out, extremely structured. So I think the structure is what I kind of recognize, like this is what I need.
Yeah.
Because that first year, that transition of going from high school to university, not playing basketball in high school to trying to keep playing it in like these leagues in the city, and then getting my ass kicked in cross country, I was like, I need to make this transition. I need to, give it my all in running and see if I can actually move up and make the what we call the travel squad, which is like the top 7 runners would represent the university as the team. So I was never in that top 7 for the first 2 years of university. I was like just running with the team, practicing, but I was never competing against other universities.
But was that maybe where you were? Were you okay with not being maybe in a very competitive type of mindset at the time? Was your focus more than, I would imagine your focus would be more on just being good?
Yeah, the focus was just trying to cut the time down, trying to get better, trying to become faster over the 10K distance. That was the distance that we trained for. And I think the benchmark at the time to make the team was about like a 35-minute 10K.
Right.
You had to run 35 minutes, and it was kind of unwritten, but you had to beat the coach, who was in his 60s at the time, who was also, when I started out, he was running about that for a 10K, and I think he was like early 60s.
Oh, wow.
So he has this coach, he's like fairly well known in Canada anyways, for at least East Coast Canada for running, but I think he has like an age group record or something for 10 miles or the half marathon for like a 65-year-old. I can't remember, but he was really good runner. He still is. He still runs a lot. But if you couldn't beat him, you couldn't make the team. That was kind of the rule. And even though I wasn't on the team, I was trying to beat my coach in running and just trying to get my time faster. So that was, for the first 2 years of university, that was the goal, was to just train, try to get faster, try to, improve. And with a sport like running, it's extremely easy to measure improvement because it's just numeric, which
very quantifiable.
I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
Being an accounting teacher. So just watching the numbers, tracking the data, looking at my runs.
There's a solace in that, right? That's like all that is taken care of in a way, and all you really need to focus on is chipping away at those numbers.
Training. Yeah. You just like follow a training plan, stick to it, and as you get into a sport like running, the hardest part is pulling back.
Yeah.
You get addicted to it. A lot of people that get into it, like if they either get hooked or they don't.
Yeah.
And if you get hooked, you find yourself running every day, and then in like 3 or 4 weeks, you have shin splints or your IT bands are tight or something.
So how did you deal with that? How did you deal with because I personally have done a lot of sports in my time, and each sport has its own kind of share of different types of wear and tear
Yeah.
injury. But there's also a fundamental underlying, physical trauma that comes with being excessively active when you're passionate, like back pains or knee
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So how did you kind of like, because I know with running, it's something you have to do a lot to be
Yeah.
good at. So how did you kind of like do that and navigate those initial physical wears and tears?
Yeah, early on I had wear and tear for sure. I had IT bands were destroyed because with basketball, like I'm used to doing a lot of lateral
Yeah.
jumping, sprints, but nothing long distance.
Mhm.
And both IT bands were super tight, and the pain mostly came down where it connected to the knee. So early on, I think I was about like 165, 170 pounds, and I was running, every day, and just tore up my knees. Had to take time off.
Wow.
Started at it a little bit again. Tried to ease into it. Had the pain again, and what it came down to is I just had to be very proactive with rolling and stretching
Mhm.
the IT bands, icing, running on treadmill instead of outdoors is just like less pounding.
Yeah.
Um, and eventually I just got lighter,
Yeah.
lost weight. And that's the thing with running. Like if you have a lot of weight on, it's more pounding.
Right.
So like, I guess, like I said in the beginning, being 5'8", 150 pounds now, I can take the, 100K a week. I can do it, and it doesn't kill me. Like my body actually feels pretty good. But
Yeah.
back when I got into it, even though I was 15 years younger than I am now, my body couldn't take it.
Mm.
It wasn't, it didn't have the muscle or the fibers or whatever. Don't know the technical terminology, but I my body wasn't built to do that sort of mileage.
Because you didn't slow down. Like you did a lot. You Dubai, Ireland. Like you did a lot. Dublin. So in all
Yeah.
these things that you've been doing, you've been training for Ironman. You've been training for marathons. Uh, which one would you say was the most challenging and why?
Marathon. God, it's a good question. I would say the first time I did a marathon was very challenging because I was very prepared for it. I had done, I think the first marathon I did, I was 26, something like that. I think 20, maybe 26, maybe 27. But at that point, I had probably 6 years of doing a lot of races, a lot of running. I had my 10K was under 35 minutes. My half marathon was like 76 minutes, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem with that first marathon is I set a goal that was really, really high, really hard. And the thing with the marathon, you go out and you're running out of like what you think is your ability or your goal pace, and everything's going fine. You get to the halfway point, everything's going fine. And then, you hear about like hitting a wall, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much hitting a wall, but I just realized at like a certain point in the race, my pace went from, 6:10 a mile, which is like a 350 kilometer, I think. And then it dropped to like a 7-minute mile, which is like a 420 kilometer. And it just happened like, boom. I just, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it's like I hit a wall, because I think that would be even more drastic. But my pace like dropped big time. And the last like 8K of the race, I was just every kilometer, I was losing like 30, 40 seconds.
What goes through your mind in those moments?
Yeah, I'm just like, just finish, try to, hopefully I can run 245. And then I realize I'm not going to run 245. And then I'm like, all right, maybe I can run 250, like thinking about the marathon time, trying to do the math every kilometer and working out like what I need to run from here on out to get that, try to like do that goal. And the whole time, like you're wanting another gel, or you're trying to find something to help, but you can't find it. So
give you
like
that edge.
That first marathon, it was just like a big kick, because I was going for 240 and I think I ran 251. So I was 11 minutes off, and I was like, how did that just happen? Like I felt like I easily ran a half marathon in 76 minutes, and that race was like hilly. Yeah. And then I ran a marathon, which is, wasn't as hilly. There's a few hills, but nothing serious. And, if you do the math, they kind of say like whatever your half is, double it and add 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
So I did that and was kind of like, if I have a great day, 240, not a great day, 245, but I was nowhere near it.
So what do you think what do you think happened?
That's just it. The marathon, like the thing with that race is you never run a marathon in training for a marathon.
Yeah.
It's just such a long distance. You'll beat your body up, probably too much in training. So it's just the going into that like water I've never been in before, where I had never run 42.2K all in one go.
Yeah.
That was the first time ever doing it. So I think that mentally, I had never been down the road mentally. And
Right.
I didn't know that pain. I didn't know what I was going to feel like at 35K. I had done runs leading up to it, 32, 34K in training. But beyond that, like, yeah, I'd never gotten to that point.
It didn't deter you though, right? So you kept going.
Yeah, I didn't DNF. I kept going for sure.
And you added things in. You threw in cycling, swimming, that you...
Yeah. So all along the training for a marathon, I've always been cycling, and I always kind of dabbled in swimming. But yeah, the whole triathlon story and how I got into triathlon. God, where does that begin? I think the first triathlon I did was like 24, 25, and I think it was just liking cycling. It's not something that you can do much in Newfoundland. The weather, the climate's no good for it. But yeah, when I moved to Dublin, moved to Ireland, cycling was huge there. I commuted every day by bicycle to and from the university, and I just recognized that there was a really big cycling presence and community there, a lot of people to train with. And yeah, I just got into cycling and kept running as well, and then started doing triathlons over in Ireland and had good results. So started finishing like close to the top in some of the races, the duathlons and stuff, and I qualified for one of these like European, I forget the exact name, it's like a European Cup race or something. So I ended up racing for the Triathlon Ireland, I guess age group team is what you would call it. And that was the first time I like started racing at that somewhat higher level. At least it was more competitive. And yeah, that was a really good time. I was definitely training a lot. Doing a lot of swimming, a lot of biking, and all along I just wanted to do a marathon as well. So,
was there any type of transferable knowledge and wisdom you gained from kind of like starting on this path that you applied into family life, academia, like personal life? Was there anything, or was it purely just because I feel like there's so many different types of athletes. Some of them are like, I have demons and this is how I keep them under control, and others are like, I have a chip on my shoulder and this is how I prove myself. And for others, it's just like, how good, I enjoy it, So what was it like for you?
For me, it's the ritual. I really find that I do well at something when there's a set plan, a process, an agenda that I follow.
Right.
And
the structure,
and the training, and back to a sport like running, biking, swimming, triathlon, there's a lot of numbers that come with that, and I'm a huge fan of numbers. So being able to track what I'm doing, being able to see progress, I'm addicted to that. I love it.
Yeah.
And just that ritualistic lifestyle of following training and having a goal and trying to beat my time in a certain race, or race other people. I want to get to the end of that race or end of the competition and be neck and neck with some other people, and have that experience of trying to sprint for the win or just to move up in the placing. It's, you can't replicate that, and it's just an addictive sport. It's addictive to an addictive thing to experience, and that's why I'm like continually doing it and still trying to make that a part of my life. But I guess your question was, how do I transfer that to work life and family life? So with family life, we're trying to incorporate rituals and this sort of lifestyle, because my wife is similar. She really enjoys running, biking, swimming, probably running more than the other two. But she's, she also does marathons, what's it called, Ironmans and stuff as well. So we're both, I guess, trying to create structure for our kids. Luca's starting to get to the age now where he's wanting to play sports. He likes playing basketball. I bought him a basketball, like an actual basketball the other day, and he's constantly getting the ball and throwing it, and I show him videos of like the NBA playoffs and stuff, and he knows what he's watching. Mm-hmm. Like he understands the sport.
Right. I feel there's some level of like intuitive understanding that we all have when it comes to physical activity. Like we just know what our bodies can and cannot do. Like if you see something, you talk to like professional mathematicians, for example, or musicians who are really good, really talented, and you ask them what's going on in your head, and they go, oh no, I just see it, or I just know that my fingers just do it, or there's some type of level of intuition when there's a passion and an interest or maybe some talent. And I think when it comes to physical activity, everybody kind of has that intuition. So do you know if you're going to push your son to a specific direction, or are you just going to let him follow whatever intuition comes to his?
Yeah, we're going to put him in as many sports as we can and see what he likes and where he starts to excel. But I think, at a young age, like we're definitely not going to try to push him in any direction. We're just going to see what sport what sticks with him, what he likes, and just pursue that. Let him, do that more.
Yeah.
But he's almost 3, so right now we have him in soccer, we have him in swimming. That's Saturday and Sunday on the weekend, and Monday to Friday he's in daycare. So he's just like learning to be a little human right now. But his
hey man, I'm still learning to be a human.
Yeah, his whole thing is he's just he's super active, and we just want him to play. But once he gets older, I think I know with me, I wish that I had the opportunity to be more involved in triathlon and athletics as a kid. Unfortunately, where I grew up is extremely small place.
Yeah.
And there was literally like 25 kids my age from when I started school when I was 5 to when I graduated when I was, in grade 12. It was the same 25 kids.
Yeah.
And so, our basketball team had 14 guys on the team. And, it was the same guys right up through. It was the same kids that we played basketball with. And that was it. Like even playing against each other, sometimes we may not even have enough to play 5-on-5.
Yeah.
So like that was the only sport that we really could play. There wasn't, we didn't have a track. We didn't have an ice hockey rink. We didn't, we had a softball field. So we could play some softball/baseball. But the numbers just weren't there. So in terms of sports, like basketball was the only one. Now for my son, like once he gets older, I think I'll recognize he's more, I think, would have a higher chance at excelling. So like, if you're 5'8" and 150 pounds, basketball may not
be your strongest
chance of excelling is so low. Yeah. Like Muggsy Bogues, Spud Webb, there's a couple of guys that were tiny, but
those are outliers. Those
very, very rare, like extremely rare to, but in terms of running, like marathon running, if you look at the Olympics, that's the average height.
Yeah,
is 5'8", and
you want to be light. You want to be
light. In fact, 150 is probably heavy, but that's the height.
Yeah.
That these endurance athletes typically are. They're pretty short guys. So
I feel like me and you are kind of like two opposite sides of the spectrum.
You're jacked.
I mean, I'm heavy, and
tree trunk legs on you.
And I've tried, the long distance stuff. It's not that I haven't. I've tried
running
it.
With a 25 kilo plate long distance.
Like like those carry-on vests with weight.
Yeah.
I used to be pretty light. I think until I turned 19.
I thought you were going to say when you turned 6 and then
and then puberty kicked in. And,
the steroids, right? The steroids, they made puberty start earlier.
I have 5 brothers, And we've always done sports.
Yeah.
Always. Different types of sports, explosive sports, team sports, personal sports. I've been mostly in martial arts. I did sprinting, so explosive sports. But there was a period, but I never really got that big.
Yeah.
And I could blame diet to be more of it. I never ate that much, almost at all. I would eat like once or twice a day. And it was not until I really graduated high school that I started like taking my diet seriously, and I said, all right, I'm going to hit 3 or 4 meals a day. That's what I'm going to eat, because I started to notice the thing that we mentioned earlier with wear and tear, that you're way more predisposed to that, to injury. I was getting injuries all the time.
Playing sports.
Yeah, because I don't eat. You know, the
Right.
nutrition isn't there. The ATP isn't there that's available. I'm constantly using glucose storages. I'm always depleted, dehydrated. So I was like, okay, I think food is important.
Right.
So I underwent kind of like the process of trying to figure out what works for me. And I realized that I have almost an insatiable appetite. So I was just eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. And I think I hit 220 pounds at 18 or 19, almost without trying.
Yeah, that's
And
because you're like what, 5'11"?
5'11", yeah.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I'm starting to kind of like come into my skin. I'm starting to see where my strengths are. Intuitively, weightlifting, powerlifting, we went in that direction. Injuries became less, strength went up, and so on. But I did still try. I tried when I was very light, jogging, running, cardio, and I tried when I was over 220 pounds. And I wasn't good at it either of those times.
Right.
And
so when you say you tried, what did, like, you ran a 5K?
I did. I ran, I don't know what it is. I ran 15 kilometers, or tried to run 15 kilometers.
Okay, yeah.
And I did so horribly bad.
15 is a long distance.
But I was, how much did I weigh? I was 140 pounds, 70 kilos, 145.
When you did
When I did the first time.
How old were you then?
I was 16, 17.
So, so 16, 17, you were like 145, and then you said 18, 19, you were 220.
Yeah.
So that's a huge jump.
It's a huge jump. It was a huge jump. All I did was eat and train.
You ate your brother.
That's all I did. I literally just ate and trained. I spent almost a year and a half, 2 years eating and training.
Okay.
That's all I was doing.
Gotcha. But like, I'm thinking, so 15K, did you train leading up to it? Like,
I did a little bit, because I did soccer for a little bit.
Yeah, that's good cardio.
And it helped, and I thought that my cardio was like, oh, it's decent cardio.
Yeah.
I'm running, and
right.
I would always do kind of good in the beep test and stuff. Like,
Yep.
But it just never happened.
Well, 15K is a lot. Like, yeah, even at that age, it's a lot. Like, I'm just thinking a lot of high school sport races, even at like the very, your last senior year in high school, the major race, at least in North America, for a lot of seniors is 5K. It pretty much stops at 5K.
Yeah.
And then when you go to university, the longest distance is 10K.
Right.
And that's like considered, beyond that, then you're doing long distance. Even 10K is considered long distance running.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely long distance.
Yeah,
it's
to do
definitely
15K is
But I think I was,
decent
I was more in the mindset of, because I had been doing like all this different stuff. I did arm wrestling, I did MMA, I did so I was doing stuff in the kind of like context of what's the most
I'm trying to think
exertive.
like neither one of those sports would help you with a 15K at all. Definitely not arm wrestling.
Nothing I had done, not even including maybe excluding football.
Yeah.
Soccer was the only thing that helped me. But I really just wanted to test kind of like, do I have any intuition there? And I absolutely did not. So do you think, because like I said earlier, like everyone kind of has like a physical intuition and so on.
Yeah.
Do you think that that is where your strongest suit is, or do you think that in 5 years you can turn around and be like, I'm going to do powerlifting now?
Funny. I think it's honestly, I think I'm better built for. My best sport would have probably been short distance sprinting.
Right.
Like probably 400 meters, maybe even as long as 8, because I just like long distance cardio so much, and 8's not long distance at all, 800 meters. But in terms of sprinting, it's like that's this distance that's kind of between fast twitch and slow twitch.
Yeah.
The 800, and it's just like it's a tough race because you basically feel like you're sprinting, and then the race keeps going. But anyway, I think that's what I'm most set for, because I've tried to get lighter than what I am now. I'm like constantly trying to lose muscle mass, even though I'm not a big guy. But I'm trying. Like if you were to put a Kenenisa Bekele or some marathon runner that runs a 2:10 marathon next to me, I would look the same way. The same difference you see with me and you.
Oh,
you
really?
Look huge compared to me. I would look huge compared to this 125-pound marathon
true?
guy.
Wow.
So, and I've seen these guys at races, and they are, sticks. The joke is they look like, a 12-year-old boy, basically, from the waist up. They're just skinny, right?
Yeah.
But there's no muscle mass, and it's not exactly what you would want. But for running a marathon, like, it is ideal, because you don't want any extra weight at all.
How do you go about that, though? How do you go about, like,
I mean, I couldn't lose the weight. I tried different ways, and maybe it's just my diet. I am drinking a monster drink right now, but yeah, maybe my diet, I could dial it in a bit better. But I tried different things, and I was able to get down to like 145, 150, but I just felt weak when I started to go closer to 145.
You start kind of like going to a dangerous threshold.
Yeah. Like I tried different fasting stuff. I tried different diets, like all meat diets.
The carnivore diet?
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was tough. It was just tough to only eat meat and find it, I guess. I could maybe pull it off better now, because I have the resources to do it. But when I tried it before, I was a student, and let's just say I was on a tighter budget.
Because you have to eat pretty big volumes of meat, right? If you're going to only eat meat, it has to be pretty big volumes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I would eat, like, even now, I'd still eat a lot of meat. Like, it's a huge part of my diet. Like, I'd probably have, 3 or 4 eggs and bacon in the morning, every morning. And then, a pretty sizable meat for dinner. But, yeah, it's just trying to cut out carbs was so tough. My brain just, like, shut off. And then trying to fast. I still do fast, but trying to push it, like, beyond a day, trying to go 2 days into a fast and still run was great.
So you would fast and run?
Yeah, I wouldn't, like, stop. I tried to keep training and fast, and it was just like I would crash.
Really hard.
Would crash so bad, just dizzy.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Heart rate was like going high and low, and just random.
Did you ever consider like getting coached, or did you ever get coached? For like when it comes to like the nutrition and the eating and the stuff?
No, I've never. No, I mean I've thought about it going forward. I do have a coach now with triathlon that I hired probably, I think it was a year ago, and I think there is an option where obviously you pay more money and you could have a nutritionist. So I could dabble with that possibly. Yeah. But I think I'm at the point where I'm at a weight, like I'm at, like I said, 150 pounds, and pretty comfortable at that weight. But
So with the family and all, I know you say your wife is also kind of like passionate about the same thing, so I'm sure it helps having that kind of like support internally. Do you get just as much time to do it the way you want to do it, or is it like far more restricted in terms of like you have the kids and
it's tougher, with kids for sure. You have to really manage your time. Time management is huge. Like every couple of days, I'm just constantly trying to figure out when things get plugged into the 24-hour day and where I can fit something in. And this is why I'm happy that I came down this career path of academics, because I do teach a lot. I probably teach more than most professors here in terms of like just sheer volume of classes,
Yeah.
but I'm still able to fit in, runs. Usually as soon as class is over, I can, if I do my run immediately or my training or whatever, then I have the rest of my day to try to work. Um, and as soon as I go home, that's the end of work. Like I can't.
Yeah. Can't bring work home.
It's well until everyone goes to bed, then I can get back to doing work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Let's get into that.
it's time management is huge, but it's still possible though. There's like I'm still training, maybe 2 hours a day most days. On the weekend, I can, if me and my wife are able to work together pretty good, I can still do like a 3 hour ride and a run on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday, a swim and a run, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta get up early or find time to squeeze it
Make
in.
the time essentially.
Yeah, make the time.
Well, kind of like you just saw, we have a really like strong emphasis recently in that just that idea of like happiness, right? Happiness in like what you do and how you make it and how much you prioritize it early in life, later in life, and so on. So, to what degree, like you've told me quite extensively of like, your inception, the genesis of all this, how it's going, where you want to go. Where does essentially your happiness with everything fit in? Do you do it based on like how happy it makes you? Is that a driving factor? Is that something that you think about a lot when you perform these your activities? Where does that fit in?
So is the question like where do I do leisure activities or hobbies
Yeah,
to be happy
is it a
or
driving factor? How
uh,
happy it makes you?
no, I would say I'm trying to think about the best way to answer that. Yeah, I don't really think about does this make me happy or not. It's more of just an addiction like coffee. If I don't do it, I get angry. But maybe because I honestly can't. It's been a long time since I've went like consecutive days
Yeah,
without doing exercise,
yeah.
for example. So it's hard to even like say what it's like to not do it. I just know that if I don't, just like not drinking coffee in the morning, I'll start to get cranky
You're cranky and
and not feel good. So maybe it is keeping me balanced. But also with that like work and having something to work towards. Not talking about athletics and
hmm
triathlon or marathons, but just getting up and coming and teaching classes and knowing that I have a job. I'm working towards something.
yeah.
That I think that probably plays a factor.
So your
Maybe.
happiness kind of is like more of an important. So the sports is the addiction. It's the
Yeah.
coffee, and the academia is kind of like where maybe happiness has more of a central role.
I think so. Yeah. Like having a purpose. Yeah.
So how is it? So you have a lot of business students and potentially other kinds of students listening. So how would you tell them to kind of navigate um, doing what they think, for example, makes them more money or gives them a safe life, and kind of like how to have happiness relevant there? Because you're pretty young
Yeah.
as a professor and you do a lot of things. You do a lot of classes, different. So, like, where does that fit in for them?
Yeah. Money is definitely part of it. Like you have to think about what you want, what's important to you, and does that cost a lot of money?
Yeah,
Like if you want to spend your summers sailing, and that's something that you absolutely love doing, or playing tennis or something like that, these are activities that do cost money. Like you have
right.
to come up with the funds to either buy or rent a sailing boat, be part of a club. Same thing with like a sport like tennis. Joining a tennis club is expensive. If you find happiness with running 30 minutes every day, all you need to afford is a pair of sneakers.
Yeah.
So it's a lot cheaper. Um, so in terms of like your lifestyle, do you want to live in a big house, have a yard, like all that stuff? Is that important to you? Are you okay with renting
hmm
for the rest of your life in a small condo? So in terms of money, like you just need to recognize what you want in your life. Are again, do you want to
Yeah.
travel every chance you get? That costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
So do you have like a family that's going to fund your hobbies? Do you have to come up with this money yourself? So recognizing that and realizing like your lifestyle, what that dollar figure is. So again, going back to numbers,
Mm.
then you need to try to find a career that's going to match your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Meaning a job that you will be able to make enough money to do the things that you like to do. So that's one part of the equation. Otherwise, like if you pursue something that you enjoy in terms of a career, and but you have these hobbies on the side that your family have been like kind of giving you an allowance or paying for, at a certain point, like that may not exist.
Yeah.
You might have to start
Yeah.
fending for yourself
Yeah.
and like
Figuring it out kind of.
yeah. So I think recognizing the money side, but in terms of happiness, like yeah, you know it's tough to figure out that career, what type of job you want to do that's going to make you happy. That is a really tough thing for young people today to navigate. I think.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, like I just personally, I'm thinking about my own.
yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Because like you mentioned, you do financial accounting, you do sports. Was it management?
Yeah, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
teaching that course for the first time this
Yeah.
coming fall.
So you're kind of like, I see that you do what you're good at as well as do what you're interested in. You teach that.
I'm fortunate, yeah. I'm getting very fortunate here at Hult
Yeah.
with teaching because I'm feel like I've gotten to a place where I'm decent at teaching accounting, or at least creating a course that students can, you know, if they follow what I put in front of them and they follow the steps, they'll learn something, or hopefully everything that you know makes up a course. But
Yeah.
I definitely enjoy teaching accounting. I enjoy numbers. That's where my strength is. And then my hobbies throughout my life, which has been sports, I now get the opportunity to try to teach that. So
Right.
that's what I'm making now this summer. The goal is to make that sports management course and make it, you know, hopefully good for students. They'll enjoy it and not find it to be like, you know, laborious or a task, but
Yeah.
they'll enjoy the class itself. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
Do you
But
do you have any experience in terms of what to do right in terms of sports management? Because is it at the direction of managing yourself or others, or where do you take kind of like that premise from? Where do you draw that from, the sports management?
sports management, are,
Do you draw it from anything personal, or is it merely just an interest?
it's I would say the interest is in sports and leagues and how they operate,
Yeah.
and just an interest in like you know watching the NBA and how contracts are formed and why players don't take the supermax and why they do, and there's definitely an interest in like the dollars and cents of different sports.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's part of the management of a sport for sure. But with this course coming up, I think you know I'm going to try to make it so that students will one learn about the different sports leagues, how they're built, who profits from a sports league, like the players, the people that own it.
Yeah.
But then secondly, I would like people to try, or like students to apply some things in the classroom to their everyday life. And I almost don't want to give away too much about the course, but I'm going to try to incorporate a little bit of like, let's say heart rate monitoring.
Okay.
And how you perform when your heart rate goes up, goes down. So
Right.
if you like you have a big competition, a big race, 2 weeks leading up to that, are you stressed? Are you nervous? How do you know how are you sleeping? That sort of thing. And then when you get to competition, how did you perform?
Right.
Is there anything that you can learn about leading up to that, the 2 weeks leading up to the
Right.
to the competition? So like
Your physiological response, basically.
yeah, so the idea is to try to get you guys not necessarily to do a sport, but to do something stressful in class, and then measure your heart rate variance and see how people respond. So whether I just give you a financial accounting test and just see how people stress out, or have you do a presentation. I think a presentation of some sort might be easier, but
that's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting because probably a presentation would be best. What was it that the people are more afraid of speaking in public than death? So crazy. On average, so Versus like I think someone who feels more confident in numbers would probably not feel as nervous. So I think
Mm.
competence is a huge kind of like speak to how nervous or stressed someone may feel about something. But that's interesting because I don't think a lot of people are fully aware of their physiological responses to stress, let alone how to kind of like manage it.
Yeah, I agree.
I know for a fact that the times I have won contests or competitions is when my breathing is most regulated, my heart rate is controlled.
Yeah.
That's when I perform the best. And when that's all over the place, I get winded. My punches aren't as powerful. Like all this, it just goes out the window. And I think there's not enough emphasis on that in terms of performing academically as well.
Yeah, I think students, if they treated their exams the same way athletes treat competitions, and the lead up to it, trying to keep your lifestyle relaxed. I know people are cramming and studying, but
Mm.
sleep while you eat leading up to it.
It's still performance.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
performance, and you need to perform with your brain in the
Yeah.
exam. Uh, you need to treat us like it's a competition,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think for a lot of students, they would find themselves just being less stressed with the exam and just not having the anxiety that
Yeah.
comes with exams. Because that's a big thing with with a lot of kids that come out of high school into university. They get these courses that have a couple of assessments, but there's usually like a big assessment, like
Yeah.
some big exam presentation that will make or break your course. You're either going to get a B, a C, or an A
Right.
based on your performance and go. So like being able to come into that and follow some sort of procedure or method of staying calm,
Mm.
not getting too stressed out. I think part of it as well is just being aware that it's okay to fail. I think a lot of students are afraid of
Yeah.
failing.
That's a very modern day, like, well, I mean, people have always been afraid of failure, but I mean that's even more today because of the high pressure, high expectation, fast
Yeah,
pace. It's even scarier because you rest at your oars and suddenly you're downstream. And I
right.
think everyone feels like everyone else is so competitive, and trying to get that 4.0 on like there's just so much competition. um,
Yeah.
they feel like there's more to lose when you fail. Do you think there's something to that, or is that maybe just
Yeah, there's something to it. I think a lot of students are, they feel a ton of pressure. Some more than others, I think, in this business school. Some students don't feel any pressure.
mm,
I get that in the
they're probably
classroom.
not paying for it themselves?
Yep, that's probably part of it. But anywho, yeah,
Yeah,
the pressure, to get a 4.0,
yeah,
that exists for sure. And in my opinion, that getting a 4.0 is great, but I don't think employers are looking straight at your
care that much.
GPA
Yeah,
when you do apply at the end of your fourth year for whatever job. I think they look at a lot of things, and whether if you have a 3 to a 4.0 GPA, I think all those students are put in the same category
yeah.
as achieved well
Because
in.
most likely they'll just look at like what have you done around that? What's everything else
Yeah,
kind of like present in your life?
yeah. I don't know if anyone looks at. I know a few people that are involved in hiring interns, students, and that stuff, and I don't know if they look at GPA at all, honestly. But
Yeah,
some do. I mean, it all depends on who gets your application and what they value.
yeah.
They may be told like, I want you to separate the resumes into piles, like put
Three
four,
point. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
put them in certain stacks, or if it's an MBA program, they're clearly going to look at the GMAT score and
Yeah.
say, if it's above this, then put it into this pile.
Mm.
But for that sort of program, if you're planning on doing graduate studies and you have the right like a GRE or GMAT or some exam, that I guarantee will be looked at
Looked at.
before your GPA is.
Yeah,
So like that mindset of trying to score an A in every course, it's good to have goals like that, but being okay with a B or a C and recognizing that like at the end of the day, at the end of your fourth year of university, what's the effect of that on your and GPA. It's pretty
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
It's only going to move the needle a little bit. Like if you get a 2 versus a 3 or a 4
Right.
GPA score on a course, because you do what, like 40 courses?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like a high number. Can't remember.
It's around that.
Yeah, so it's not going to have a huge effect. But of course, every student wants to do their best and get
They
an
want to
A.
stand out. They want to do their best.
Yeah.
They want to excel at that.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because I was thinking the other day. I own a couple of businesses myself, and I've noticed that people have perfected the interview process, the interview stage. And this is kind of like something that kind of like applies across different things, where people have become very good at presenting the best of themselves, which is great. That means you know how to count up your successes and your strengths and so on. But a lot of the time, performance doesn't always match.
Right.
So you get someone who is like you're interviewing for a certain role, and I can do this, and I've done this, and this is my LinkedIn, and this is my resume, and these are all the things I've been part of, and performance does not match that level of competency they've presented. So kind of in a world where sometimes the appearance of performance outweighs the quality of actual performance, I feel like it becomes even more important for young people to become part of sports, because you cannot fake a 15-kilometer run.
Yeah.
You can't fake that.
Yeah, it's very cut and dry.
Yeah.
You can't fake, an MMA record of 30-0
You
or
can't.
whatever
You
Habib's
cannot.
record is.
You cannot.
I don't
And I was actually listening to David Goggins,
Right.
and he was like, he's the one who wrote what was it that he wrote? Something Past the Pain, I think. And he used to be like a Navy SEAL, and he has like all these records. He has like most pull-ups, and he's run like all these ultramarathons. And he used to be talking about like how his whole life he was avoiding pain. He was avoiding the difficult stuff. He hated water. There's not a lot of black people that are Navy SEAls, apparently.
Right.
Like less than 1% or something.
Interesting.
High bone density, the water is not a friend. But then, he reached a point in his life where he said that has only led him to being in the worst place he possibly wants to be in life. So he kind of switched 180 degrees and just only did the things that made him uncomfortable. And he has a story about how essentially he looked like a bodybuilder, and he's running a 40-hour marathon. And he's like peeing blood, and he's like he's in the worst physical state he could possibly be, and he's like 70% there. And just how he pushed through that. And I was just thinking to myself, like, that is the purest form of performance. And I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I've never peed blood.
No, good. I'm glad. But I was going to ask you, Canadian culture compared to American culture in terms of success or achievement, or are there any differences there?
A little.
That you've noticed?
Yeah, there's a little for sure. I think there's a lot of pressure on winning in a lot of sports in America. In Canada, the pressure is ice hockey, but for the most part, I think in Canada, it's definitely not as competitive. I don't think. Yeah, but I think the differences are pretty minor, like pretty minuscule. We have a lot of similarities with culture in Canada and the U.S. in general. A lot of the sports we play are the same, but Canada is just, the focus is ice hockey, some little other sports, but as long as we win in ice hockey, like in the Winter Olympics, that's all people care about. Or if like a Canadian team wins in the NHL, which is very rare, but again, most of the players on the American teams, a lot of the players are Canadian, so people from Canada are like, go Canada that way. But I would say we're not as tooth and nail as American sports. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's the coaching, the school system. It could be the NCAA, the way they value and reward winning, and coaches can get fired if they don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of incentive around.
There's a lot of money involved. Yeah, it's not so much like that in Canada. but yeah, with the competitiveness down here, I kind of like it though. Like even at my son's level, like I can see at his little soccer practice, there's hundreds of kids
Yeah.
at different levels, and I can already see like just the differences between these kids and how some of them are taking the sports more than others. All the parents are with the same mindset, trying to get their kids in sports, but it's already. I'm looking at Luca playing soccer and thinking like I look forward to him getting competitive at some sport, maybe soccer or whatever sport he picks. But yeah, it is competitive down here for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's just a numbers game. Like Canada's so much smaller than the U.S.
There are more people, right?
Yeah.
So it feels kind of inevitable. So then, what's next for you in terms of your passion, your sport? What's next for you? What's the next thing you're going to be doing?
Well, so Boston Marathon is October 11th, and the goal is to try to run my fastest marathon in Boston. So
Okay.
That's why you guys see me running every day.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get ready for that.
Yeah.
It could be hot in October, so trying to run middle of the day when it's as hot as possible here.
Okay.
Get used to the heat.
Use
So yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But like the goal is to try to run like 2:40. That was the goal on my first marathon. Didn't even come close. I have come closer since then, but haven't gotten to it. Second goal is still Ironman races. I'm triathlon. I'm still doing a lot of biking and swimming. Not so much swimming these days, but a lot of cycling. So the overall goal with triathlon is to eventually qualify for the Kona race in Hawaii. It's competitive to do that. You have to do an Ironman and win your age group to qualify. So you kind of got to get lucky. It's not a time thing. Like with Boston Marathon, you got to run a certain time to qualify for Boston.
Yeah.
But for Kona, the be all end all for triathlon, you just have to win your age category. So hypothetically, if no one shows up in your age category and you finish the race, then you actually qualify. Which doesn't happen often. It's the race is like sold out every time.
Yeah.
But that's the goal there, and I think to do that, I need to do like about a 9-hour Ironman. So that's another goal. I don't have an Ironman this year. I haven't signed up for one. I don't plan on, but maybe early next year. COVID put I was supposed to do one, but everything got canceled, and but I'm gonna do a few half Ironmans this year. Next weekend actually, I'm doing half Ironman, so we'll see how it goes. It's kind of I don't really have a goal for the race. I'm just
you kind of use that to gauge where you're at.
Yeah, that's more of a benchmark to see where I'm at. But for now, those are the goals. Just keep running, keep doing cardio, and I have no idea beyond that, like when I'll get sick of this sort of thing. I know part of me, I watch MMA a lot. I don't think I'll ever
get into it,
but I'm super enthused. I'm a very enthusiastic fan of MMA, UFC. You mentioned arm wrestling. I also watch a lot of arm wrestling.
Yeah.
I've never done it in my life, but there's a Canadian guy, Devin Larratt. Yeah. Who's kind of like the top.
He's the world champ.
Yeah, I think he just beat this guy, Michael Todd, recently, and kind of claimed the crown. But there's a fella from Georgia, actually. I think it was LaShawn or Vashon, and I forget his name. But he's
but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's this great big guy that looks like a bear who's also very good, and they're the top two guys. But I like watching arm wrestling. I don't know why.
Arm wrestling and MMA, UFC are two things people actually love to watch. Not a lot of people try it, but it's
just odd. Yeah, it's weird watching arm wrestling. It's such a weird sport to watch. I had no idea it existed.
It's the epitome of He-Man type of activity.
It's weird, yeah. I watched a few female matches too. Didn't get into it. It was a bit. Wasn't.
I mean, when you want to watch something like that, you want to really watch the aggressive stuff.
Yeah,
I get it.
Because when I did the few female matches I did watch, they just were extremely. We'll say revved up.
Yeah,
and the men are too, but after the match, when I did see men arm wrestle, they were kind of they were okay with each other.
Yeah, it's
But
not personal.
I wasn't personal, but the
Yeah.
few female matches I saw after the match, they were still pissed off at each other.
Yeah.
Is the feeling I got.
Because they have to emotionally not like you to
Yeah, or something,
perform
and
well.
like it's just that's not
Yeah.
what you want to see. Like with MMA,
No.
for example, for the most part, all the female matches are great, and the females
Yeah.
like they fight. It's almost exactly the same as the men fight.
Yeah.
It's like the same level of competition.
Right.
But every now and then you do see like Ronda Rousey when she used to fight.
Super personal.
Very personal,
Yeah.
and the match would end, and she would like flip the finger to
Yeah,
her
yeah.
competitor, and I didn't like watching her
There's
fight.
no sportsmanship in that. Yeah.
No sportsmanship, and like you don't see that a lot with the men. There will be a lot of like, back and forth leading up to it, but as soon as the match is over, the guys like typically
hug it out or
hug it out. Yeah, they seem to make up,
fists and you're good.
That's what we were taught all the time growing
Yeah.
up playing sports. Like you weren't taught to hate your competitor
Right.
after the fact.
Right.
And some people do have to get a grudge to like fight, I guess, or arm wrestle.
Yeah.
But
that's what I meant like earlier when you're like some people like they have a chip in their shoulder.
They need a
and
chip.
others, they need a they have demons, like something. You don't always just have a pure athlete just out for the thrill of it, kind of.
Yeah.
It's rare.
I think with me personally, I always wanted to win. I was just like competitive, not really wanting other people to lose, but just wanting to win whatever it was I was competing at. And that was always the what drove me. But as I became older and became an adult, then I realized like that's not as important anymore. It's more just personal growth.
Yeah.
I do very much enjoy watching UFC and arm wrestling. I found it funny when you brought up both of those sports.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm watching both of them a lot. I always liked UFC, but arm wrestling just popped up in my YouTube feeds and started watching.
Because they know the same type of people who tend to.
Yeah, it's the algorithm. They know UFC and arm wrestling go hand in hand, I guess.
Know you a bit better than you know yourself, right? Okay,
maybe.
I guess I like this.
Yeah, or something. It's odd, but do you still arm wrestle?
No, not as much. I just really don't want to. I don't fight either. Right now, my priority is my brain, so I don't want to harm it in any way.
MMA might. Yeah, not good.
And I think it's one of those sports where. I think it's one of those sports that are very similar to powerlifting, actually, where if you're not planning on going all out and becoming like top tier, don't overdo it. You don't want to mess up your vision forever, mess up your neurons, mess up tendons, and then you retire to be work at an office. Like it's not. It's one of the things. You go full out, everything, burn that candle quick, but bright, or you keep it safe. Be careful. Don't overdo it.
If there was like one of the sports of MMA that you would recommend someone doing and being the safest for, let's say, a 35-year-old who wants to do something different. What sport would be the best?
Contact sport or explosive sports?
I mean, like MMA related. Like
MMA related?
Like boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, which would
I would say anything grappling. Because grappling is safe in the sense that there's counter and there's defense, offense. Training is relatively safe. Something's too much, you can just tap out. It's a bit more controlled. It can be deadlier in many ways. 80% of all fights end up on the ground anyway. But it's way harder to control for strikes. Usually once a kick is midway in the air, you can't really go, stop, time out. Yeah. You're gonna get hit in the head, right? Yeah. Unless you dodge or you block, you can't time out in the middle. You can't tap out a kick. So I would say go for anything that has to do with grappling. You can do basic Greco-Roman, you can do Krav Maga, you can do Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is probably a cool place to start. You learn manipulation and defense. So I'll definitely say go for that. Yeah, and it's very important not to be too big.
Yeah.
So that works.
That would work, yeah. Maybe if I was to do anything, it'd be jiu-jitsu.
Think about it. Go for a class. There's an MMA place not far from there.
Cool.
Go for a class. Try it out.
Maybe someday. Yeah. The only problem right now is I'm like extremely I'm not flexible at all. But running kills your flexibility. Like you get so tight.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Your flexors just
tighten
up.
There's no flexibility. I feel like that's a prerequisite, or at least something that you need to work on
Yeah.
to be good at jiu-jitsu, probably.
Yeah.
Flexibility. At least when I see the guys doing the different holds and stuff, they're like, yeah,
They can all do the split.
their legs and arms are up in the air and shit.
Well, thank you so much. Thomas, thank you for this amazing podcast. We got through a lot. We're hearing the guys giving us the wrap it up signals. Thank you again. Hopefully we get to have you maybe after you've done some of your competitions, gauge how that has went. Maybe after you've tried jiu-jitsu.
Maybe, yeah.
And we'll see where we're at. So thank you again.
Cool. I saw the guys giving the signal. That's why I started asking questions.
Yeah.
I was trying to see what happens when we start dragging this on beyond the time. Put you under pressure to try to cut it off in a natural place.
I'm not the one doing the editing, so I'm good.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate it. Thanks, fellas. And yeah, maybe sometime in the future I'll jump back on.
For sure.
We'll chat some more.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thanks so much.
Cool.